Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I'm out in the wilderness again, as always. I love it here, as you know. I tell you what though, there are a lot of people here today because the weather is really mild. I'm very surprised that it's so mild for this time of the year. But anyway guys, I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. You know, I always try to come out here whenever I can because I know my days are numbered here. And by that I mean that it's going to turn too cold for me to go out. They're predicting a very cold winter for Virginia this year, so we'll have to wait and see. But anyway guys, if you like stretch bracelets and you like sparkly crystals, you've come to the right place. We're going to be making that beautiful bracelet stack that you saw in the introduction, and those are stretch bracelets, so they're very easy to make. And I know a lot of you already know how to make stretch bracelets, but I know a lot of you don't because you're just starting out in the jewelry making industry. So hopefully my tutorial will help those of you who are beginners. And one thing I do want to go over is the way I knot my stretch bracelets, because guys, I've tried it all kinds of ways through the years. I've tried left over right, right over left, surgeon's knot, double surgeon's knot. I've tried hiding the knots in crimp beads. I've tried hiding them in the holes of the beads themselves. And just like so many things in jewelry making, it's all very frustrating. It can be anyways. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't matter how many years you've been at it. For example, I've been at it for over 10 years and I still have trouble crimping beads. The same thing happens with stretch bracelets. Sometimes the knots come out really good and sometimes they don't. It just depends on what kind of stretch cord you're using and the kind of beads you're using. So anyway, after much trial and error through the years, I settled on a technique that I use over and over, and it seems to work out really well for me. So hopefully you'll learn something today. I don't know. Everybody has different ways of doing things, and hopefully my method will help those of you who are starting out. Now I'm going to be using GGC's treasure bag that was released in October. It was actually an autumn bag. The name of the bag was Autumn Tone, and of course it had beautiful autumn colors. But I truly believe that you can use any color for Christmas. You just have to know what elements to put with it. For example, you can add charms that have a Christmas theme. You can use colors like gold or silver. And as you saw in the introduction, those bracelets were gorgeous. But anyway guys, if you're not familiar with GGC's treasure bag, I'll leave the information down below, and I'll leave a link to her website as well. And by the way, I know most of you already know this, you don't have to use the exact same beads that I'm going to be using today. If you don't have the beads, go into your stash, be creative, and make whatever you want with the colors that you want. Now when you're making stacked bracelets, the best thing to do is to have a cohesive plan, and by that I mean that you have to have an element, either a bead or a color, that you can cross-migrate between one bracelet and the other. In other words, if you have gold beads on one bracelet, then you have to find a way to introduce that color into the other two bracelets, or 3 or 4 or however many you do in the stack. By doing that, you can use pretty much any color that you want. You can have a multicolored set if you want to, as long as you have 1 or 2 colors or some kind of element that the other bracelets have as well. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not confusing you. I learned that many years ago, back when I did an interior decorating course. And I was never an interior decorator, but I used the knowledge that I learned from that course with my faux finish business. I had a faux finishing business. And if you don't know what faux finishing is, it's a method of creating artistic wall finishes, such as color washes, ragging, glazing, that kind of thing. I actually did that for 4 years and I learned an awful lot about color. I really did. It was actually very rewarding and very educational. So anyway guys, I apologize for the shaky camera. I don't have my tripod today, but I do have my microphone, so at least you can hear me, hopefully. And I know you can see this beautiful background and the beautiful blue skies. Look at this. Look how beautiful these skies are. Aren't they gorgeous? It's really a beautiful day today. I wish every day was like today. Now before we get started, let me remind you to please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget that I always leave timestamps down below in case you want to skip forward to any portion of the video. I'm also going to leave a list of the materials and the tools that I'm going to be using today. And one thing that would really help my channel is if you leave some comments down below and let me know what you think of the bracelets. And I would also be very interested to learn about the type of knotting that you do, whether it's left over right, right over left, double surgeon's knot, whatever it is. Let me know what kind of knot you like doing and what kind of glue you like to use. That would be very helpful as well. So anyway guys, I know you're anxious for the tutorial, so let's go ahead, turn the camera around, and we'll get started. And here we have GGC's treasure bag. The name of this bag is Autumn Tones. It was launched in October, so obviously it's no longer available. Whenever a treasure bag is launched, it pretty much sells right away. But anyway guys, if you haven't seen the unbagging, I'll leave a link down below so you can go check it out. Obviously we're not going to go through the bag today. I'm just going to pull out the beads that we're going to need. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll be right back. So here are the beads we're going to be using today. Now these are not the full strands. I've actually used quite a few of the beads. So what you're seeing here are much shorter strands. But usually Gina includes very long strands in her bags. They range in size usually from 15 inches to 22 inches and sometimes longer, I think. So anyway, let me go over the beads really quickly with you. These are 8 by 5mm rondelle beads in the color wheat. As you can see, they're faceted. These are faceted glass cubes. They're 6mm across and the color is saddle brown. Now you may have gotten a different color. There were 2 color options, either saddle brown or amber. Either one will work. Now these are the faceted electroplated glass rice beads and they measure 6 by 4mm. The color is golden rod, but it's really difficult to see because they have this beautiful AB finish on top that looks kind of greenish, but the plating is only on one side of the bead, so when you turn the bead you can see the golden rod color. And I think these are my favorite right here. I love these beads. When I first saw them, I fell in love with them. They're so sparkly and gorgeous. They're called Twisted Teardrop Electroplated Glass Beads, and the color is sandy brown, and they measure 13 by 8mm. Now these are from my own stash. As you can see, they're seed beads, and they're very irregular seed beads. I got them on Amazon. It was an enormous bag, and it's taken me forever to get through them. And I would consider this color to be an antique gold color, but I'm not so sure about the size. They're not really size 8/0s, and they're not 6/0s. There's something in between. And because they're so irregular, they're perfect for this kind of job. I would definitely not use them for bead weaving, but they're great for stretch bracelets or stringing projects. I'm going to be using some charm holders today. I got these on Amazon as well. And I like to use these on stretch bracelets because they have holes that are pretty big and you can actually hide the knot inside the hole. Plus they have the added benefit of having a loop so you can hang charms. Let me just pull out the ones that I think I'm going to be using. I picked these 3. And I picked them because of the shape and because of the size of the hole. I tried to measure them even though they're a funny shape, and they measure about 6mm and the hole measures about 2.5mm, so I should be able to hide the stretch cord knot in there. You don't want to use some that have holes that are too big because then it'll slide around too much. You want the stretch cord knot to fit snugly inside that hole, and you want your beads to sit nicely up against the charm holder as well. I have a few additional items here, as you can see. I have some ball head pins and some 4mm jump rings, and I have these very cute little star charms, as you can see. I got them on Amazon as well. They come in a pack with quite a few of them, and I want to say there were 100 in the pack. But what I like about them is that they're nice and small, so they're perfect for charms and they're not too overwhelming or too heavy. We're going to be using some Powercord today, and this is pretty thick Powercord. It measures 0.8mm, and as you can see, it's in a clear color. It says that it's latex free and no fray and knots easily, but we'll see about that. I haven't come across a thick stretch cord yet that knots easily, to be quite honest, but I'm going to show you my knotting method and hopefully it'll work out. I'm also going to use some adhesive, so that should help. This is the adhesive I like to use. It's called GS Hypo Cement, and I like it because it has a thin precision applicator. So the first thing we're going to do is cut ourselves 3 pieces of stretch cord. And I always like to leave myself at least 3 inches on each end to do the knotting. So if your bracelet is 7 inches long, for example, you're going to want a piece that's at least 13 inches long. That's what I recommend, just to be on the safe side. Of course, you could always use less if you wanted to, but I don't like struggling with stretch cord, so I like to cut myself a generous piece. And since we're making 3 bracelets, I'm going to cut myself 3 pieces. And the first thing you need to do, guys, before you do anything else is to pre-stretch your stretch cord. Because if you don't do that, what will happen is the bracelet will stretch by itself just from wearing it and from the weight of the beads. And then you'll end up with gaps in between your beads. So you want to give it a good stretch. So that should be good enough. Now to create my bead patterns, I'm going to use my magic rods. I carry these in my Etsy store, and these are actually the 9-inch rods. I do have some that are longer, 12 inches, but I'm going to be using the 9-inch length today. And the reason I like to use these is because I can thread all kinds of beads on these rods. I can thread large beads as well as seed beads, and I can put them up against each other. And as you can see, they come with these little stoppers. So what I do is I bring the stoppers in, and that way I can get an accurate measurement. Now obviously not everybody has these. You can use a beading board if you want to, or you can use a scrap piece of beading wire. That's what I used to use before I came up with this idea. I just like the idea of being able to thread all kinds of beads, all kinds of shapes, sizes, including the tiny beads up against big beads, which is something you can probably do on a beading board, but you won't be able to get an accurate measurement. And because I have 3 of them, I can arrange beads for 3 bracelets and have them all be the exact same length. So that's another reason I like to use these. But anyway, guys, if you're interested, I will leave a link down below in the description section of this video. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go get the beads. So here are all my beads, and I have my 3 charm holders there. And we're going to get started with bracelet number 1. I'm going to remove the stopper, and I'm going to load some of these cubes. And I think what I want to do is put seed beads in between the cubes. So I don't know how many I'm going to be needing right now, but we'll figure it out in just a second. So this is what we have so far. And I'm just going to continue the same pattern. As you can see, I've loaded quite a few, and before I go any further, I need to measure it. Here's my ruler. And it looks like I need a few more. I'm trying to build a length that's 7 inches long, and that includes the charm holder, so I need to take that into account. So let me load a couple more. So I've loaded a few more. Let me measure it again. As you can see, I'm not at 7 inches just yet, but if I add the charm holder, it should put me at 7 inches. So let me go ahead and do that and see what happens. Let me just move this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. As you can see, now that I've added the charm holder, I'm at 7 inches. I may be off by just a tad, but I'm not too concerned about it because I'm in the vicinity, and that's all that matters. So now I'm going to put my stopper on so I don't lose the beads. And by the way, guys, these rods are pretty sharp, so you need to be very cautious when working with them because they are pretty sharp. Now, if I wanted to be super precise, I could swap out this charm holder for something that's a little bit bigger, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it at a little bit under 7 inches, and to me that's good enough. I'm not going to be too picky. So I'm going to put this aside. That's my first bracelet. And now I'm going to work on bracelet number 2. So I'm removing the stopper. Now for this next one, I want to use these gorgeous beads here. And I'm going to team them up with these beads as well. So let me go ahead and start with these beads. I like to work in odd numbers, so let me just load 3. And now I'm going to load one of these seed beads. And I'm going to load one of these. And then another one at the other end. So it looks like this. So now I'm going to repeat the same pattern. So that looks pretty good, and I'm just eyeballing it. Let me measure it before I go any further. Here's my ruler. And it looks pretty good. It's about 6 3/4. So that means if I add the charm, it should be 7 inches. So let me go ahead and add the charm. And I'm going to put my stopper on. Bring all the beads up close. Let me slide these stoppers in so the beads are up against each other. And that looks pretty good. It's almost the same as the other one. So I'm pretty happy about that. Let me put it up here. So now I'm going to build a third one, and I think I'm going to use these beautiful beads here. They have that greenish electroplating on top, which I think is gorgeous. But we need to figure out how to tie the whole thing in. So whatever I do needs to coordinate with these 2 bracelets. Let me go ahead and remove the stopper. And I think what I'll do is start with 3 again, because I like working with odd numbers. But now that I'm looking at these, I'm thinking maybe 5. Let's do 5. That looks better. And now one of these seed beads, and maybe one of these rondelles, and another seed bead. And I think that looks really nice. I like the look of that. So now I'm going to repeat the exact same pattern and see if I can get 7 inches. Okay, as you can see, I've repeated the pattern a couple of times, and so now I need to measure it before I go any further. Here's my ruler. Let's take a look. So as you can see, I'm at 6 1/8. So I can do a couple of things. I can remove the seed beads and make adjustments there, and that should adjust the length a little bit, and maybe I can repeat the pattern after I do that. Or I can remove one of these rice beads. So instead of having 5, I'd have 4 of them. You don't always have to work with odd numbers. I just prefer to do so, but sometimes I have to compromise and work with even numbers. So instead of having you sit through a very painful process, I'm going to do this off camera, and then I'll come back and show you what I did. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I've completed all 3, and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Now I did have to play around with this one a little bit more to get the right length, but let me show you what I did. As you can see, I removed the seed beads in between the large rondelles, and the only place that I have seed beads is at the ends. As you can see, there's one here at this end, and there's one at this end. And I did create a focal in the center, as you can see, with 5 rondelle beads. So anyway, guys, that's one way to fix it. All you have to do is create a focal with the number of beads that you need, and that should give you the length that you need. The other option would have been for me to use a different charm holder. I could have used one that was bigger or longer, but I decided to keep all 3 of these charm holders the same. Now, if you're making this as a set, of course you wouldn't need charm holders on each one. You could just have the charm holder on one of them. It's personal preference. But anyway, guys, I'm very happy with these 3 bracelets. So let's go ahead and put them on stretch cord. Here's one of the 3 stretch cords. We're going to work on one of them first. Let me move these 2 up, and we'll work on this one here. Now the first thing we need to do is remove the stopper from this end. So to do that, you have to hold on to this end so the beads don't slide out. And let me remove the stopper. And now we're ready to load the beads, and you can load them in multiples if you want to, or you can load one at a time. It's up to you. It all depends on how comfortable you feel about using the magic rods. As you can see, I'm doing 2 here. I didn't do 3 because 3 don't fit very well between my fingers, and I don't want to drop the beads. But you can certainly do 1 at a time like I'm doing here with these beads. Whenever I'm working with beads that have very different sizes, like this faceted one and the seed beads, I do 1 at a time just because it's not comfortable for me to grab the whole set at once. But if you're working with sets that are the same size, then you can certainly do multiples. One of the nice things about the rods is that it lines up the holes. So all you have to do is slide them right off the rod and slide them right onto the cord or whatever stringy material you're using. So anyway, guys, I'm going to keep going until I get to the end. Okay, as you can see, I've loaded all the beads, and now we're ready to knot it off. So let me show you how I do my knots. I'm going to take the left side and I'm going to cross it over the right side like this. And now I'm going to take this end and go under and pull. And that brings the beads together like this. Now you want to kind of hold on to it so the beads don't slide around underneath that knot or in between the cord pieces. And now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take the left one and go over the right one like this. And then take the end and go under and pull. And you want to pull it quite a bit, but you don't want to pull it to the point where it's going to snap, because it will snap. Now you want to pull the 2 ends, but you also want to pull the bracelet like this. Make sure that knot is nice and tight. Now this knot is not secure yet, so you need to hold onto your cords. And now we're going to do a surgeon's knot. We're going to take the left one and go over the right one again, go through the loop twice, like this. And now before we pull the tails again to create that surgeon's knot, we're going to pull these down here to tighten it up, and then go ahead and tighten up the surgeon's knot. You want to make sure that it's tight, but you don't want to break your cord. So once again, I'm going to pull on this part of the bracelet where the beads are, and I'm also going to pull the tails. And that looks pretty good to me. Now I'm not going to do any more knots because I'm going to be adding some glue, and that should be enough to hold that knot in place. And obviously I'm not going to cut the ends off until I add the glue. So let me go ahead and get the glue. Here's my glue. I'm going to add a very tiny amount. You don't need that much. And you want to make sure you apply it on all sides of the knot. And that should be good enough. Now before you cut these ends, you want to make sure you let that glue dry a little bit. I'm going to let it dry and I'll be right back. Okay, I've let it dry for about 15 minutes. Obviously it's going to need more drying time, but I think it's safe to cut the ends off and slip that knot inside that barrel bead. So let me go ahead and do that. You don't want to cut it too close to the knot. You want to leave a little tail, a very small tail. I would say about maybe 1 millimeter, something like that. So that's what it should look like. And now we're going to slide that knot inside that bead. And it should slide right in if the hole is big enough. And that's all there is to it. Now guys, that glue is not dry yet 100%. You really do need to let it dry for at least 24 hours before you wear the bracelet. And I'm saying that because it's inside this charm holder. So obviously the air isn't getting to it. So it's going to take a little bit longer than if it weren't inside a bead. So anyway, that's my advice. No matter what kind of glue you use, make sure you let it dry for at least 24 hours. But isn't this gorgeous, guys? I love it. I think it's so pretty. As you can see, it's pretty symmetrical. But what I like about this bracelet is the sparkle, and it's perfect for the holidays. So anyway, guys, now that I've done this one, I'm going to go ahead and do these two off camera, and I'll be right back. As you can see, I've tied off the 3 bracelets, and now I'm ready to attach the charms. And I have my 3 little stars here. I have 3 jump rings. And I'm going to make 3 additional charms by using some of the beads from the bracelets. As you can see, I've loaded them on ball head pins. Let me give you a close-up. This one has the cube and the seed bead. This one just has 3 seed beads. And this one has a rice bead and a seed bead. So let me just go ahead and do one of them. I'm going to make a wrapped loop. So I'm going to grab the pin at the top of the bead like this, kink it like this. Whoops. Let me just show you the angle. Okay. And now I'm going to make a loop, but I don't want the loop to be very big. So I'm going to place the wire at the tip of my pliers like this. I'm going to take the tail, wrap it around the tip, flip my pliers around, and continue to wrap that tail to the back. Like this. Remove the pliers. And now we're going to create some wraps, but before we do, we need to attach this to the charm holder. So I'm going to go ahead and feed the loop of the charm holder into the loop of my dangle like this. And now I'm going to grab that loop with some skinny pliers. And with another set, I'm going to grab the tail and I'm going to do a couple of wraps. You can do as many wraps as you want to. I like doing between 2 and 3. Once you've done your wraps, you can go ahead and trim off the excess wire. Like that. And if you see anything sticking out, you should tuck it in. So that's the first charm, and I think it looks adorable. And I used that cube on purpose because I wanted to bring some of the other elements into this bracelet. That's one way to get things to coordinate. So now that we've attached the cube, we're going to attach one of these stars. Let me grab a jump ring. And now let's go ahead and open it up. Connect the charm to the jump ring like this. And now we're going to connect it to the loop of the charm holder like this. And now I'm going to close it up. You want to make sure you close it really well so there are no gaps. And there you go, there's your first bracelet. Isn't that adorable? I think it's really cute. So anyway, guys, all 3 are going to have the little star charms, but I'm also going to use these beaded dangles. So let me go ahead and do that off camera and I'll be right back. Well, here are my 3 beautiful bracelets. And aren't they adorable, guys? I thought they turned out really nice. I love the charms on this one. I love the charms actually on all of them. I think it really adds to the look. I think it really enhances the bracelet. And having the dangles gives them a little bit of interest. And of course I love the colors. And even though they're autumn colors, they definitely have a holiday vibe. It all depends on what kind of charms you add. Obviously I added some stars, so that makes them look more like Christmas or New Year's. But if you added some leaves, for example, you'd get a different vibe. And this is what they look like on. Aren't they adorable? I think they're so pretty. I think I would actually wear all three together, even though there are dangles on each one. I love the colors and I love the way these beads sparkle. They're so beautiful. Let me just show you each individual bracelet. Once again, as you can see, this one has the cubes with seed beads in between each cube. And I attached two charms, a little star and then one of the rice beads with a seed bead on top. I really adore how this bracelet turned out. I love the colors. Let me show you this one. This one has those gorgeous faceted twisted beads, and each one has a seed bead at each end. And then in between the twisted beads, I have 3 of the rondelles. I like this combination because the 3 rondelles together are almost the same length as the twisted faceted beads, so it looks very symmetrical to me. And as you can see, I've attached another one of the little star charms, as well as 3 seed beads on a head pin, just to tie the whole thing in. So I'm very happy with this one as well. Let's take a look at this one. This one has a focal section, as you can see, with 5 rondelles, and then the sets are made up of 3 rice beads, separated by single rondelles, as you can see. And since I couldn't get the exact length that I wanted, I had to add 2 seed beads, one on each side of the charm holder. And once again, I added a little star charm, but I also pulled in one of the elements from the other bracelet, the cube bead, and I added a seed bead on top to tie the whole thing in. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I hope I've given you some ideas. Let me clean my workspace and I'll come back and say goodbye. Well, wasn't that fun? I love making stretch bracelets. They're so easy to make and very quick as well. They make a great Christmas gift. You don't have to worry about the size so much because they stretch. But if you are going to make some, it would be nice to know what kind of wrist the recipient has, whether they're petite, medium, or large. And that's easy to do. You just have to glance over without even asking them. All right, everybody, the sun is going down. I'm running out of sunlight here, and there are kids all over the place making all kinds of noise. So I better wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.